Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome back to TPS. This is the Paradox Series. Hopefully you are all very well indeed as we are racing here tonight around Austria. Welcome to the Red Bull Ring and of course Spielberg. TPS hosting its first round 7 event, around here in Spielberg. It is one of those tracks where infamous incidents occur. 10 of the turns with 2.6 miles of circuit in the 3 DRS zones, allowing for some excellent racing all around the field. And of course keep an eye out on the hot spots for racing. Turns 4, turns 3, maybe 5, 6 and 7 will be bringing some good racing in tonight. And we'll take a very quick look at what we've got coming up as regards of the driver lineups. Leading the way for Paradox Sim Racing, Scyther and PSR Connor, usual pairing that we usually see in PSR as the championship leaders continue on with their charge at the front of the field. FRA Matthew and Logic are racing tonight after Stonks' amazing win at Monza last week. Wilson and Smokey racing the way for Visceral as they try to claw back the points that maybe they lost midway through the season. Montoya, a man of the moment for Roleplayer 1, racing alongside Adam tonight after a great performance last week. And then Jam Pancakes racing not with McCabe Sam but VRCGC tonight. Team Artemis racing with JTO40. MKedge currently with some issues. Hopefully he'll be in the lobby in a short moment. Ishsar Amin racing with Lucas tonight for Novus. Meanwhile, ET8 Sports racing with Quantum and Oscu, as both drivers now in after Oscu missed out, of course, last week. Phoenix and Bobberts is the situation for CRT. Bobberts on his own at the moment as Phoenix has got issues as well. As we finish off with Team Shazoo, Leopard and Venom racing the way for the Scottish team. It is myself, Jota, alongside PSR Loveland. Thank you for being very much for being alongside me for this one. We're going to be in for a very, very interesting race ahead of us. Austria usually is the track that usually brings some of the spicier fare, really. And let's be candid, with 19 drivers all sort of ready and raring to go around the circuit, and after an epic race at Monza as well, Austria is only going to capitalise from that performance.
Yeah, we're going to see some close racing tonight. A lot of drivers that are similar in skill level, and a track that is renowned for DRS trains. I think we're going to see a lot of swapping every single lap. That's how it seems to go at Austria. You know, go up to turn 2, and there's an overtake. Go up to turn 4, there's an overtake. So lots of chopping and changing tonight. But looking forward to my commentary debut. It's been a while, so I'm absolutely raring to go.
Yeah, nice to have you back with me, of course. We are saying a temporary fond farewell, of course, to the usual commentator racing for AEM, the manager, of course. I believe he's actually off on holiday at the moment, isn't he? Taking a couple of weeks off, and he'll be thoroughly missed. In the meantime, but nonetheless, we do have yourself, Ollie. You've obviously been watching on the sidelines as this tournament has been sort of going on. PSR, let's be candid, right at the start of this campaign, flexing muscles, showing their pace throughout the season, but later down the line, the pace has been a little bit off and their consistency has fallen short. And though they have a 73-point lead going into this round, halfway through the season, they have lost quite a bit.
Yeah, we saw PSR, obviously, as you said, stretch their legs at the start, and they decided to give a few different drivers in their roster a chance. They gave Levi and Boots a shot at Belgium, which they actually got a good result. But FRA and Saint George is quickly closing the gap. And here we see Cypher and Connor, one of their strongest lineups. If you don't include PSR Nick, who we've seen a lot of times this season, definitely one of the PSR strongest lineups. So expecting big things from them two today. Not sure if you followed the Xbox vs PS event, James, but Connor got a P2 there. So he's on great form at the moment, and hopefully he can carry that into tonight.
Well, just people currently in the chat at the moment, currently discussing, and by in the chat I mean in the Discord, as we just seeing the Soul. In fact, I say Soul, it looks like MKedge has just managed to join into the lobby as I say that. He is now leaving the pits for Artemis in the Aston Martin very early on, actually. We did start the stream last week a little bit later on because we didn't see anyone leave the pit lane after, I think it was 8 minutes of Q1 had elapsed, which left it was just with 10 minutes left. So very early call for MKedge to go out there, get a feel for the track. But going back to my point about what we're seeing at the moment in the Discord, people are complaining that I'm seeing that we've got rain, and then we've got people saying, no, it looks like it's mixed, while some people are saying it's dry, and the conditions are set to perfect. So everyone's seeing different sort of weather conditions, despite the fact it's saying it's perfect, which means people are not going to be so sure going into the race, and whatever the weather conditions be, no one is going to be prepared. Surely that's going to make for some epic racing, as on his outlap, MKedge has spun the car.
Yeah, I think mixed conditions could be definitely a bit of an outlier for most of the teams. And as you said, people seeing different weathers, which is quite unusual, as you said, perfect weather. And yeah, MK's going for a spin, just getting a feel for the track. And obviously, them tyres aren't up to temperature. But he is going to start a lap now, so I'll let you give us a little commentary lap. I think he's pushing, so yeah, here we go.
Well, we'll see what he does anyway. We'll keep an eye on Artemis. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak around a lap around a track I'm not actually quite fond of, really. But going into turn one, you want to try and come in around about 4th gear if you can. A bit higher gear for MKedge on that particular occasion, but not taking too much curb on that occasion. This is technically turn 2. Despite the fact it really isn't turn 2, as we now head through into turn 3, as we've got people already disconnecting from the session. Hopefully this is not already a restart, which would be detrimental, shall we say, as they head now down towards turn 4 and getting a lovely tow already from his teammate JTO40, as Artemis clearly working a treat without Brett at this moment in time, obviously on the holiday, and I'm sure he'll be very happy to see that his teammate working absolutely to perfection. We'll keep an eye out going through turn number 6 into 7. And you want to try, if you can, and push quite hard here, and a little bit of a downshift to then put it into an upshift through there. Typical of what we saw with Felipe Massa, as he usually drove around here with that particular style. As MKedge going around turn 9 into turn 10. And again, you don't want to mount the curb too much here because it will spit you out. A sausage curb can be lethal, as he'll come across the line and will set the initial lap time of 1:05.6. Though we do expect some lap times will be considerably faster on this one. MKedge, no doubt, will be giving a nice little tow to his teammates as he starts the lap as one of the Williams, this PSR driver, leaving to start his lap.
Yeah, we got a few other people starting their laps. I believe it's quite hard to keep track of who exactly is starting their lap, but I know that Matthew has just gone through turn 1. Cypher does a 1:04.5, 1.1 seconds ahead of MKedge. So he's warmed up, he's ready to go. Great lap from Cypher. RP1 Adam goes into P2 with a 1:04.8, so respectable lap for the RP1 driver. But I'm on board currently with FRA Matthew. He's coming up to turn 4. Quite a tricky braking point. Got to brake at the 70-meter board if you can. And he gets it turned in very nicely. Gets the power down early as possible. And now you're going to cut in on the right and fling it round left. How does he do? Very nice. Very committed. Gets the power down. It's a 44.6, which is a very, very quick split. And I think this could be a contender for P1 as we come to the final 2 corners. Arguably the trickiest on the track. You just got to fling it in. Have all confidence in the car. And he uses every single millimeter of the track. Comes to the final corner. What's it going to be? It's going to be a 1:04.2 for Matthew. And he absolutely stomps the rest of the grid. What a lap from Matthew, setting the pace early.
Yeah, FRA Matthew obviously coming off of the back of a good performance from FRA in general. Stonks getting the race victory in Monza. FRA Matthew, though, on the back of a controversial race in Bahrain, if you remember, at round number 1. Managing to take the victory after a very, very aggressive race, but the qualifying lap he set was invalid, and that obviously mixed things up, and that, I think, may have been on his head a little bit, because I've seen the pace of Matthew, but race-wise he's not really been towards the front. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can perform if he's already 3/10 in front of a very fast Scyther for PSR. Another driver I'm going to be keeping an eye out on actually is going to be the ET8 driver of Quantum. Now he didn't have the best qualifying at Monza, but in the end turned it into a P5 for ET8, and they absolutely are going to be happy to know that their driver has got the pace here. And one team that's going to be very happy to hear that Phoenix has managed to finally join into the session, so he will sit in the Red Bull, and CRT, who are on the brink of potentially being knocked out of this tournament, might just be able to continue on.
Yeah, so firstly, as you said, Matthew, he's a very self-critical driver. He's got the quali pace, he knows that. But he's got a bit of inconsistency in the race, many mistakes coming up recently. So he's trying to iron that out. And as you said, CRT going to be very happy to have both drivers on the grid. So we do have a full grid for tonight as ET8 Quantum goes into P3, just 6 thousandths behind Cypher. So as a pad driver, I think you've got to be pretty happy with that. You know, getting in with the big boys. We've still got 10 drivers without a lap, but very good lap from ET8 Quantum as they'll be looking to get into Q2.
Just keeping an eye on the Shizou driver Venom. He's just wanting to keep it nice and tidy if you can, of course. He's had a bit of a tumultuous race across the esports realm. Has been involved in a few collisions here and there, so he'll be hoping that TPS will bring him some good fortune, shall we say, as the Venom will come across the line, and he'll set an initial lap time of 104.8, just sneaking in behind RP1's Adam. RP1 actually coming off of the back of a very good qualifying with Montoya, and himself actually not setting up a representative lap time into the 1:12. His teammate, though, Adam, into P6 with a 1:04.8, and only just beaten by Logic, who's just come across the start finishing line to set the initial 1:04.7. Really, really close qualifying between second all the way as far down as 8th, as we've just got another driver who's just come in. I believe that's WR Smokey, who's just put himself on the front row equivalent, but still 3/10 down on Matthew. Cracking lap indeed from the FRA driver.
Yeah, it seems like Matthew got everything sorted out, because with everyone's attempts, they're still 2.5 tenths off the pace. But still a good lap from the VSR drivers, although don't be deceived by the gamer tags. They are VSR, not WR. But Smokey P2, Wilson P3, very close top 6 if you don't include Matthew, because we got P2 down to P6, just covered by 1/10.5. So very good stuff. And that's most people's run 1 done, but we've still got people such as Jam Pancakes on the lap. He just starts his lap, and might as well go through it, as we don't see Sam tonight. I believe he's on a cruise, according to Team Boss. So have fun on your little cruise, Sam. But we've got Jam Pancakes and JC tonight, who is in P14 with a 1:05.7. But Jam Pancakes getting a very nice exit out of turn 3. Now coming down to turn 4, you want to brake around the 70-meter mark, and he does so very nicely. Gets the apex just clipped perfectly, gets the power down as early as possible, and now you come up to the end of sector 2. Got to fling it in left. Bit cautious as Jam Pancake is concerned, but it's a 45.0, so we're looking for maybe mid-pack time here, and coming through to the trickiest sector of the track. 2 very, very difficult right-handed. You've got to fling it in, have all the confidence in the car as CRT Phoenix leaves the session. Still more problems for CRT, which is a shame to see. But Jam Packet's come to the line. It's going to be a 1:04.8, and he goes P9.
Yeah, and a really close proximity qualifying so far, though. Obviously, just down in the 1:04.8 puts him in 9th place. I mean, it's not a pole position lap time, but it's not as far down as P10 on the 5th row of the grid. So it'll be interesting to see how his teammate VRCGC, obviously coming in the replacement of Sam McCabe, as you rightfully point out, on that cruise, and a wonderful holiday and a wonderful break, I'm sure, for the Saint George Esports driver. Here's Montoya. He's trying to set a representative lap time on an out lap at the moment, and coming off for the back, though, as we said earlier on, from a cracking Monza. Ends up seeing him managing to sneak in, did the RP1 driver, into Q3 and really put a shift in.
Sorry, just inviting CRT Phoenix back to the session, but yeah, RP1 started the season very strongly, but just personally, I feel like they've fallen off a bit. The results haven't quite been what they'd expect. And as you can see here, RP1 Montoya struggling to get a valid lap in by the looks of it. And currently down in P17, out in Q1 currently. And RP1 Adam looking right on the fringes in P11, I believe, in a 4.8. So RP1 will be looking to bolster their performance this race. They've fallen off slightly recently, but I'm sure the French fans will be egging them on for a good result today.
I'm sure they absolutely will. Keep an eye out on site. I'm sure the American fans will be very happy to see their man currently flying high at the moment. He's been one of the drivers, I think, alongside LCR Leopard and maybe the likes of Otis Lawrence and everything, who have been absolutely fantastic to watch on Xbox so far this season. And he currently in P3 at the moment, and 64 thousandths of a second down on Smokey, as it looks like we've already lost Loveland from this lobby, as it looks like Seth is actually coming in. I'm wondering if we are already starting to lose this lobby. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if you can still hear me, but I am here. I think my Wi-Fi must have had a spike of some sort, but I am still in. I'll be rejoining, but yeah, I think that might be just down to me, not the lobby.
So fingers crossed you'll be able to get back into the lobby, and there we see you are joining back in, thank the Lord, and hopefully fingers crossed we don't have any further issues, because I think we've been on the back of 2 restarts in a row now for PSR, which for TPS rather, sorry, which has been a disappointing affair really from the Codemasters franchise of games, because we shouldn't have to go through multiple lobbies in order to just get an race session done. Either way, Smokey coming around turn 7 now into 8. And there's a big tank slapper, very well caught from Smokey to just put it on the gravel and stop himself from losing the rear end. But that is his lap time over and done with, as we've lost Loveland again here. Looks like we're getting some further issues at the moment for our co-commentator, so fingers crossed we will get him back in the session. In the meantime, we'll keep an eye on what's happening in the midfield at the moment, as Logic has gone a little bit faster in the first sector, albeit just by a 100th of a second, but a 10th faster in the second. Logic is looking to try and sort of counteract with the performance of what happened with Stonks last week, as he sits in his seat ultimately for this particular race, and he'll want to try and at least get somewhere within the close proximity of Matthew. We'll see how Logic does then. It's an improvement, and a considerable improvement. He goes into the 104.4s and is now sharing a front row with his teammate. It is all about what that Q2 and Q3 performance is going to be like for the McLarens. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will get Loveland back in the session at some point. Unfortunately, he has disappeared from my screen anyway, so maybe some reoccurring internet issues. So you're going to have to put up with me on my own for a little bit, as we just keep an eye out on the rest of the field and see how they perform. And we'll keep an eye out on Montoya, who finally manages to get a representative lap time into the 104.6s, as he will be, I reckon, through to Q2 no problem at all. Issues, of course, falling on the case, though, at the moment for the Red Bull team, because CRT are well down the field. One person has only just managed to connect into the session on 1:15s at the moment, which is going to be a spot of bother, to say the least. And we're just opening up into the Paradox Series chat on YouTube, as we just keep an eye on what's happening at the moment in there. If you are just tuning in and you are just wondering, well, where's the chat gone? The reason why you can't see the chat is because you need to subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to get involved with the community, and pop into the chat and discuss what we've got coming up. It's going to be a very interesting event, as Amine has just gone up to P7, as we've got one of the Artemis drivers coming in, and he'll be looking to set a lap now. I believe that is MKedge, who's looking to try and improve from his 105.6. In the chat at the moment, Kirby asking, where is Rev? Well, Novus didn't select him by the looks of things. In the moment, you are going to be racing with Amine and Lucas at the moment for the Novus Racing team. And FRA Stonks, what was said about me? A cracking race victory, my friend, at the Monza Italian Grand Prix in PSR, the TPS last week. The second time I've got that mixed up, as we just keep an eye out on what's happening at the moment with the likes of MKedge, and fingers crossed we will be able to get Loveland back into the chat. It looks like he has now managed to reset his internet connection, and in that meantime we will keep an eye out on what's happening around the field, as looks like MKedge is looking to try and improve in the lap, and he is actually 4 and a bit tenths up in the first sector. We will get Loveland back into this session, as it looks like MKedge has just got out of the way because he was up, but unfortunately he's invalidated his lap. So last opportunity now for the Novus Racing driver, as he needs to, the AEM Artemis driver, as he's trying to get out of the way of all of the other field and manages to sneak back in. Is he going to be able to get in, is the question, because he's got a bunch of traffic and he's refusing to go. And he is going to run out of time here if he doesn't go, as he gets through the dip. But he really does need to go here, and to me it looks like he's not going to continue on here, as Loveland has disconnected again from the session. Hopefully we can get him back in the lobby. We will have him commentating alongside us again at the end of Q1. And it looks to me as if MKedge was just struggling to get a session going here, and hopefully he's not going to be compromised as a result of that one, because his tyres are going to be cold and they're going to be dirty as well, as he goes into turn 1 and he does catch a little bit of oversteer. So as I said, hopefully we'll get Loveland back in the session ever so shortly. Looks like we've got some reoccurring internet issues happening at the moment for our co-commentators. We keep an eye out on MKedge going through turn number 3. Very well taken, actually, despite the cold and dirty tyres. Checker flag is now out, as one of the Novus drivers getting out of the way of the rest of the field, as he now heads into turn 4. Does MKedge. He needs to try and flex a little bit of muscle, and that is his qualifying session over and done with, spinning out at turn number 4. Disappointing stuff there happening here, and even more disappointing stuff potentially for ESV Bobberts, because Bobberts absolutely did track extender that final corner, and if he gets through to Q2, it's going to be in very controversial circumstances in that circumstance, and I'm sure that one is going to go to the stewards. CRT Phoenix, he refused to leave the pit lane, so he'll be starting at the back for CRT, but at least they've been able to field 2 drivers, albeit a little bit late. MKEJ is also out as well, and that will be the bottom 5 all decided over and done with. We've lost one of the Saint George Esports drivers, VRCGC, out alongside JTO40, Lucas, MKEJ and Phoenix. That's both of the AEM drivers are out. One of the St. George, one of the Novus, and then one of the CRTs. Bobbers, though, controversially through after track extending at turn number 9. Fingers crossed we'll be able to get PSR Loveland back into the session, as it looks like the technical issues continue to fold within the universe of this platform. Looks like Loveland has decided to restart his Xbox, can we believe, trying to get that one all up and running. So it gives us an opportunity to have a very quick look at how Q1 has gone so far. So FRA leading the way at the moment. At the front, it is 104.2, 104.4 for the McLarens. WR Smokey just tucking in behind for VSR though, 104.5 for him, 104.5 as well for PSR's Cypher, and ET8, I did say keep an eye out on Quantum, their fastest driver so far this season, has been showing a little bit of pace. He's only 7 thousandths of a second behind Cypher. Leopard for Shazoo, forever the driver that is Mr. Consistency, I'd have to say, 104.6 exactly for the German. Connor for PSR in 7th, Amine is in 8th for Nova, so we'll be very happy to see they've managed to get into the top 10. Wilson for VSR is 9th with Montoya also snagging into the top 10. Jam Pancakes through as well with Venom, Bobberts, Oscu and Adam. I'm sure Bobberts' lap though will be investigated because it did track extend at turn 9. JTO48, VSR, GC, No Lucas and MKEJ and CRT Phoenix all out of Q1. So, of course, while this is all happening, we are, fingers crossed, going to be getting a little update at some point from PSR Loveland, as he will be aiming to get back into the session. Because we do frightfully miss him, don't we? PSR Loveland, who will be hopefully with us very shortly indeed. As we do get going with Q2 in this session. And in what is happening right now, we have got 50 drivers already and raring to go. Of course, if you are just either new to Formula 1 or just catching up with Formula 1, we are not in requirement of needing to start on any specific tyre in Q2, because it doesn't matter what tyre you qualify on in Q2, and if you get through to Q3, you won't be starting on it. You start on any fresh tyre that you want. That opens up the strategy. The first driver to leave will be Roleplay 1's Adam, who's actually not had that bad of a start, actually has a Roleplay 1 driver. RP1 Chaotic in the chat. Good evening to yourself, sir. Of course, cheering on your team at the moment. Both drivers through to Q2, so you must be happy. TPS very happy to see Roleplay 1 flexing their muscles out there at the moment, alongside all the other teams, of course. It is all going to be about PSR, though, at the moment. Championship leaders, 73-point gap separating them from FRA at the moment. But they're coming off of the back of a little bit of a poor performances, actually. They've not been very consistent the last 2 or 3 rounds. So they've had their fair share of mistakes. As we're just hoping, fingers crossed, we should be able to get Loveland back into the party. And then, fingers crossed, we'll be able to have more than just me in the stream, because I'm pretty sure you'll be bored out by just my voice on the own here as we go through a final corner. PSR Connor looking to start his lap now. Plenty of other drivers out in front looking to start setting a bit of a pace setter, of course. First person that'll be setting a lap, I believe, will be RP1's Jack, as Connor has just invalidated straight away in the international sign of mugging off. Heading through turn 6 and then turn 7 now is RP1 Adam. Looking to keep it a bit conservative again, short shifting into 6th. Seen a lot of drivers short shifting into 6 actually, into 6th gear through turn 7. Oh, that's a big one. Straight on the curb. And no front wing at all. He's lucky actually, he's still in qualifying. 1:10.8, but no front wing now, and he will come back to the pits, and he's, like I said, very lucky that he's managed to get away with that. Jam Pancakes now coming around the final corner. He's about to start his lap here, and it looks like the track is a little bit greener out there. A few people struggling out there. As fastest second sector goes to Matthew, just a little bit over a tenth. Matthew going fastest of anyone so far and beating his Q1 lap time, 1:04.1. And that 1:04.1, WR Smokey coming across the line, 1:04.2. Wilson coming across the line, 1:04.5 at the moment. So starting to put a little bit of pressure now on FRA's Matthew. Was about 2.5, 3 tenths separating him from the top. Now it's down below a tenth. Heading around turn number 7 and then heading towards turn number 8 and 9, and then of course into 10 for Jam Pancakes. Oh, he's invalidated. Can you believe it? Turn 9. This is where it's going to be the controversial nature of Bobberts managing to sneak in, because he definitely track extended to that corner. Jam Pancakes did it, but probably less so, and got an invalidation. So I'm sure that'll be one for the stewards, won't it, Loveland? Nice to have you back.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite see what happened to Bobberts, but I've seen some controversy in the chat, so I'll have to look at that when the stewards' decisions come around. But yeah, looking pretty competitive so far. Matthew and Smokey seem in a bit of a field of their own, but yeah, as you said, Jam Pancakes invalidating, and hopefully he can get back into the pits. I mean, he's got time to do maybe 2 or 3 runs still. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on Jam Pancakes throughout this session, as he, you'd have to say, is the lead Saint George driver tonight without Sam here. So yeah, hopefully my Wi-Fi holds up, and let's get for a good night of racing.
We can keep our fingers crossed on that one, as we just keep an eye on Connor at the moment. 1:05.1 for him at the moment, so just a bit under a second slower than Matthew, and not usually the pace you'd see from PSR side. Obviously had an invalid lap and chose to come straight back in. Connor is well down the field at the moment, so you know, is this going to be the reoccurrence now of maybe, just maybe, some technical or maybe some issues at the moment with PSR, not able to find and flex the pace that they really have?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think that Cypher and Connor are arguably top 10 drivers on the game, I would say, when it comes to Xbox. So it's a shame to not see them performing as of yet. But you'd have to say Connor maybe on a used set, and Cypher just bottling his lap. As I don't know if you saw that, Smokey had a big moment there at turn 7, I believe, and he's going to come back into the pits. But yeah, we'll like to see what Cypher and Connor can do. I think they've got a lot more up their sleeve, because Connor is definitely not a second off of the pace. So be interesting to see if they can get up there. But yeah, as you said, PSR's lead is slowly coming down race by race. It started as an 80-point lead, and we're slowly getting down. I believe it's a 60-point lead now. So if we have 10-point loss every race, we're going to be right down to a title decider. So PSR really need to buck up their ideas and get back on their high horse, because it's getting a bit close in for second and third.
Yeah, from the last check that I saw, it was 73 points, and I think that was maybe about 20 minutes before the stream. I had a very quick look at the table, and it suggested that PSR were going to be in a bit of trouble if they keep dropping points, and they're going to be dropping positions as it stands. Only one of their drivers will be through to Q3, and only just as well, only manages to sneak in by about 500ths of a second in that little situation, shall we say, as we're just following Amine at the moment. Amine's been a driver alongside Quantum and even Bobberts, actually, despite the track extension in Q1. Absolutely showing some real good pace here. Now, Bobberts actually is in good form outside of TPS. In general, his league racing form is really up there, managing to get a very good win, I believe, in WR Tier 2 on Tuesday night, and it was a good result in that race, actually, and I think he was racing for the victory, but in the end beaten by, would you believe, I believe it was Quantum in that race. So both of those drivers are showing some good pace at the moment here, and I'm expecting the pair of them to be actually very similar in pace throughout this event, as is Montoya as well. Montoya has got a little bit more pace than 105.1 rather. He should be able to get into the 104s, as Osku gets a really good lap time in as well, 104.4 for him, as it looks like Quantum has just come across the line as well for ET8. ET8 really showing some pace tonight, 104.6, third and fifth respectively.
Yeah, flexing their muscles a bit, going into third and fifth for ET8. So I believe Osku was meant to drive at Belgium, but I'm not sure what exactly happened, but he did have to pull out. So this is the TPS debut for Osku. And really flexing his muscles there in P3, only 3/10 off of P1. So if ET8 can get a double Q3, that will be huge, because unfortunately they have taken a 3-point deduction for a late lineup this week, which does put them down to 9th in the standings. So a double Q3, and if they can convert that to the race, that will be absolutely huge points, as FRA Logic goes into P3, and it's a 1-3 for FRA. So really trying to put that charge onto PSR, who are still in P12 and P14.
Yeah, PSR in 12th at the moment, and just following Connor as he's actually just going through turn number 7 into 8, and he's actually had a good selection of corners. Actually, you're able to put the power down, so he's clearly got that rear end sorted out now as he goes through into turn 10, and the front end sticking very nicely indeed. Connor looking to try and get out of the top 10 if he can, and he certainly will by going into the top 3. He's got into the 104.2s, and is only 18 thousandths of a second down on Smokey, albeit Smokey set that lap time quite early on in Q2. So finally some pace starting to come now from the PSR drivers. It's all about whether Cypher can now set at least one kind of conservative lap before going maybe for a push on the next occasion. Big lock up into 1 though.
Yeah, I hope we're seeing a bit of track evolution as well, because it seems like everyone that crosses the line goes into the top 10. So be prepared for a lot of times tumbling down as the session goes on. We also saw Jam Pancakes going to P8 there for 104.6, and Cypher is going to get a beautiful tow from his teammate Connor as they come down the turn 3 to turn 4 straight. It's an absolutely beautiful tow, gets a maximum potential from that tow, and now he comes up through turn 5, now into turn 6, got to fling it left, and he does so perfectly. Get the power down as early as possible. What's it going to be? It's a 44-7 split, and this is very competitive from Cypher. So he's proving us wrong. He's really putting the PSR name up there. If he can put these two corners together, maybe get some traffic from the Mercedes. Can the Mercedes get out of the way? No, he starts his lap perfectly in time. So no distraction there from Cypher. Comes to the line. What's it going to be? It's a 104.4. P5, maybe not as quick as I expected personally, but into the top 10, and that's all that matters.
Well, what happens means that everybody that's set a representative lap time is within 1 second of the fastest lap set by Matthew, 104.1, and in fact the top 5 are separated by 2.5 tenths, so incredibly close work at the moment. PSR now 3rd and 5th, FRA 1st and 4th, VSR are 2nd and 7th, but then ET8 snagging themselves a good position now in 7th and 9th, as Amine for Novus has started to flex a bit of muscles himself now, up to 4th place. That track evolution may now start to become a serious thing now, and this is where it's all going to be about who is going to be setting that lap time at the very last opportunity, and who's going to be brave enough to have a go at getting that fastest lap at the last opportunity, because of course if you do invalidate, that will be it.
Yeah, as you said, Amine went P4. Wilson said, I don't think he did, and he went P4 with a 104.3, so the times are so close. And yeah, Amin's been very, very strong in qualifying recently. I believe he got on the front row in Italy in TPS, or second row maybe. So really flexing his muscles there for Novus Racing. And if he could bring that energy into Q3, he's going to be on for a 3rd row as it stands. So yeah, very, very close grid at the moment. Connor's retired from the session, so he's happy. He thinks that's going to be enough. And I'd have to agree with him, because very good lap from Connor as RP1 Montoya goes into P6 with a 104.3, and the times are just so close. I feel like you just don't get this anywhere else. The times, I mean, P2 to where is that? P9 is within two tenths. So just a small mistake on a corner could cost you 6 positions. I mean, That's exactly what we want from TPS, and very close racing. It is great to see.
Adam is also improving as well. He's 2.5 tenths up in the second sector, despite the spin, of course, at turn 3, which saw him lose his front wing. So he's going to find all the time in the third sector. The first and second sectors looking pretty promising, though. He's matching that of his teammate, so he may be looking at a P5, P6 for Adam as he comes across the line, and he only goes P11, actually. It was a poor third sector, but I say poor, it's only a 10th, and he moves himself all the way up to P6 or P7 as he spins out. 2 minutes left in the session. He needs to get a shift on and get back to the pits ASAP if he wants to have any shot of doing this, and that spin might have actually cost him an opportunity to have another go in that one, so it's a bit daft of RP1's Adam. Now he's in 11th place as all people coming into the pits, if they have the opportunity to change out of their soft tyre compound. Scyther, I've got no doubt, will no longer be improving his laps. Those 3-lap-old soft tyres are going to be out of the water for qualifying, and he is actually arguably at risk with so many people so close to him at the moment. We could be losing one of the PSR drivers if Logic, Leopard and Oscu have got anything to go about it. Quantum certainly will be looking to try and improve if he can as well. We're currently on board with FRA Logic at the moment. He's looking to try and get a better lap in if he can with that 104.18 at the moment. 103. It's not too long away. It's all about how he improves here, and every 100th and every 1,000th may count here. Here comes Logic then as he comes across the next corner here, and he is just a little bit under a 10th up here, and it might think it was only only under just a 10th. But that is going to be a massive improvement in the position he gets here. It could be as far as P4 or 5 here, could the FRA driver. Crispy thinks that FRA are not going to do well this race for some reason, and that's a track extension for FRA Logic, and suddenly what looked like to be potentially a position in P4 for him is now a serious risk of not getting through to Q3 at all.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Logic. Invalidating his lap at the final corner, just so unfortunate. And we see Oscu, who's half a tenth up, and half a tenth will just put him behind Logic. So if he can have a perfect final sector, he will go ahead of Logic, and he flings it through the right, gets the power down as early as possible, don't extend like Logic did, and he gets it very comfortably, maybe a bit cautious. It comes to the line, it's going to be a 1 minute 4.4, but no real improvement, doesn't improve any positions. Shazoo Venom is retired from the session, so Shazoo will not have 2 drivers in Q3 as Oscu has spun at turn 1. ET8 Quantum coming to the line. What can he do? He goes, he improves, but I believe he was invalid. So not many improvements coming from the bottom 5. Jam Pancakes down in sector 1. Bobberts comes to the line. He goes into P9. What a lap from Bobberts. A controversial pick for Q2 after the alleged track extension in Q1. So that will definitely go to the stewards, but a very interesting Q2. And if Jam Pancakes can improve, which he is, Leopard will be out. We come to the line now. That's a huge extension.
No,
that is a very big extension. And that will definitely go to the stewards if he gets through. He doesn't, but that is that's quite controversial as well.
If Jam Pancakes will go to the stewards for that one, and I expect Bobberts probably will as well. I mean, there have been a few track extensions at turn 9 where people may have been hesitant to get back on the throttle in order for their lap to count, but rule of thumb is simple. If you track extend, your lap is deleted, as we now have rain falling on the circuit. I did think that those clouds looked very ominous, and now the rain is now starting to fall. Quantum will come across the line and he's half a second down, so that will be it. And ETA, who are looking pretty solid for a good Q3 appearance, are now both out. Jan Pancakes is out for Saint George. RP1's Adam also out. Venom is also out. Bobberts has managed to sneak into Q3 despite the track extension at Q1, which I'm sure a few people will be looking pretty. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, ET8 were looking so strong in Q1. I believe 3rd and 5th at one point, but not looking good there, unfortunately. 11th and 14th, or 15th, I believe, as I believe I've disconnected once again, which is not ideal, but yeah, I'll have to let you lead.
Fingers crossed we can get you back in the lobby, but that is now it for Q2. And now what rain is now beginning to fall in this session, which now has opened up a very interesting Q3 ahead of us. So let's take a look then at the Q2 results as they stand. Matthew then gets the front running spot, but then FRA couldn't match him, and he is now down in 8th place with Logic. Smokey is in the 2nd place spot with VSR. Connor's in 3rd, Wilson in 4th, Amine in 5th, Montoya into 6th place, Scyther down the order in 7th place, but With Bobberts in 9th and Leopard in 10th, the top 10 have all been separated by just 2.5 tenths in that session. Oscu is out with Jam Pancakes, Adam Quantum, and of course 15th place man Shazoo Venom, all out of the standings, but the entire grid was separated by just a little bit over 4 tenths of a second as we now head through into Q3. And the rain did start to fall, so it's all about what those conditions are going to be like. Are they going to be suitable for dries at the last minute? I don't think they are. We might be on for an Inters Q3.
Yeah, we'll definitely mix up the grid compared to Q2 and Q1. As you can see there, that is rain. That is quite good. A lot of rain. So we're going to definitely see into conditions for Q3, which may mix up the grid from the previous results we've seen. But yeah, a lot of different teams into Q3. We got both VSR drivers, both PSR drivers, both FRA drivers. Then we got a bit of a mix. We got one Shazoo, we got one RP1, we got one CRT, and one MVR. So a bit of a mix in Q3, and that's what we like to see. A lot of different teams competing for the crown. Yeah, let's see if this mixes it up. Got any predictions early on in this session? I mean, we haven't seen any wet running, but
PSR are usually pretty good in the wet from the previous experience I've seen them when I'm commentating, and not just in leagues related to team building, but of course in just general league racing. I do tend to see the PSR drivers tend to flex their muscles, but Shazoo are also very good in the wet as well, and I think Leopard may be one to watch in this event. Early indications would suggest to me Matthew might sneak in here, but with those intermediate conditions, could it certainly mix up the grid? That is certainly going to be one to watch as we just keep an eye out on the field now as all of the drivers getting out there, and I'm not surprised they're out early. They want to get a bit of engagement, don't they, about what the track conditions are like now we're on intermediate tyres.
of course this is much different conditions to what they've experienced for the most part of this session. As you said, Leopard got pole position in the wet at France, round 4 of TPS. So definitely one to watch. He could benefit massively from this. And Shazoo currently in a very close battle for P3 in the standings, maybe even P2, with Saint George's and FRA. So the battle for P2 is on, and wet conditions may be favouring Shazoo, but unfortunately Venom not getting through to Q3. So can't benefit from that as Cypher track extends at the final corner to start his lap. Not sure if that's a controversial one, but we'll see if anyone reports that one. But Cypher coming down to turn 1, it's pretty confident on traction, no real rear wheel spin, and seems pretty confident in the car underneath him, set up optimized for this track. Comes to the first sector, braking at the 100-meter board, gets it slowed down very nicely, clipping the apex just perfectly, and gets the power down very nice. This looks very clean and very tidy from Cypher. And as you said, PSR very strong in the wet. So we'll see if he can transform this throughout the lap. Maybe a bit cautious into turn 4, but gets the power down absolutely beautifully. And now he's got to fling it through the double left, which he does quite nicely, missing the apex just slightly, but carrying that speed on the exit. It's a 49.7, not exactly what the sector times are, but looks pretty tidy so far. And he's definitely going to go to the top, as he is the first driver to set a lap in Q3. My dog is currently covering the screen, but I could just about see. Comes to the final corner. What's it going to be for Cypher? Looking like maybe a 1 minute 11, 1 minute 12. It's going to be a 1 minute 12.332, and he goes P1, just followed by WR Smokey in P2.
Yeah, keeping an eye on WR Wilson as well, as one of the McLaren's FRA Logic did invalidate his lap. Wilson goes second in front of Smokey. It's a 12.3 for him as well, so beating his teammate by 25 hundredths of a second. Montoya goes into the 13s. Connor down the field with a 12.5 at the moment, and I said downfield, it's only a couple of tenths, but Bobbert's going fastest of anyone so far with a 12.1, but then Leopard comes out of nowhere with that 12.1 himself, beating Bobbert's to the front row as it stands, front spot rather, on the front row is Bobbert's, and Mine will come across the line in third place, as the Novas are really showing some good pace for the Mine tonight, and so far FRA are struggling in the wet. Logic and Matthew both having to set another lap in board because they both invalidated their first occasion. So they've really got to get a lap in here as Lucas reconnects into the session ahead of the race. So as it stands, Leopard showing the pace that he had at France, but Bobbert's in controversial circumstances getting through to Q2 might be sneaking on for a potential pole as long as he doesn't bin it. Very well caught as he heads through into turn 6.
Yeah, as we said, Leopard always strong in the wet, but saying that, Cypher does go P1 just by over a tenth with a 1 minute 12.0. We also have an FRA driver of Logic coming to the line, only a 13.2, which was invalidated. So, as you said, FRA really struggling. We'll go on board with Matthew as well. Can he get FRA on the board? Because they are the only two drivers, without a time on the board. Has a bit of a moment at the final corner, but comes to the line, 1 minute 12.5. It's only P8. So a bit of struggle here currently from FRA's. Leopard goes P1 with a 1:11.8, and just reinforcing our beliefs that Leopard is so strong in the wet.
He absolutely is at the moment. Bobbert doesn't improve. He was on a slow lap on that particular occasion, so he's going to have another go now, I think, by the looks of things on that particular realm for the Continental Racing Team. Wilson are absolutely... well, VSR are certainly going to be happy that they're in front of FRA at the moment, but FRA are really not showing the pace that you usually see them here. Logic invalidated that lap with a 13.2 at the final corner after he got a massive tank slapper and very well caught from Logic, but he's still yet to set a lap, so it wouldn't surprise me here if he's going to come in now, come out rather, and stay out to set at least an lap. We'll see what happens then as he comes into the final corner, and he is going to be setting this lap, and he is keeping it much more conservative on this particular occasion, but these McLarens are not looking comfortable out there in the wet. Logic will come across the line, and he does manage to beat Montoya though. He's on the second row just behind Bobbert's P4.
Yeah, big improvement there from Logic, getting FRA on the board. But personally, I think FRA will be quite unhappy with that. They want to be fighting for the win. And only P4 behind CRT driver Bobberts, who is P8 in the standings. TRT, that is. So Logic, P4. And now it's just up to Matthew. As I say that, he spins at turn 1. So it's not looking good for FRA. They've really got to sort this out, because currently losing a lot of points if it finished like this to PSR. So, yeah, very interesting dynamic we've got in Q3. And as we said, it's definitely going to mix it up. And 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the top 7. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see. And that is the definition of mixing up the grid.
Mixing up the grid, and it's certainly been mixed up. Add salt, add pepper, and you've got a delicious combination of some fantastic racing ahead of us. Of course, FRA flexing their muscles throughout qualifying, unfortunately, is now going to see them potentially in a serious mix for missing out on a pole position as it stands. Logic showing some pace with the 12.2, but Matthew was looking to improve on that last run before he spun, and he actually was down 17 thousandths of a second on his fastest lap of a 12.522. So he is really struggling out there, is Matthew, but it's all going to be... I'm looking forward to seeing what the stewards have got to say about Bobbert's situation. A cracking driver in really good form, but he's in third place at the moment, in a place that arguably he shouldn't be after track extending at turn 9. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone does send that to the stewards, because Bobberts and CRT could be in a little bit of trouble later down the line. Keep an eye on Amine while this is all happening, by the way, on an outlap as it stands, as he's looking to try and get a lap in. He almost crashed it into the wall, actually, coming out of the pit lane exit, trying to get a lap in. So clearly the intermediate's not in their best form. He now just starts a lap as he's looking to try, if he can get at least into the 12.1, he's going to go up at least 3 positions.
Yeah, I mean, as you commented there, we've seen multiple penalties throughout the season of track extensions being penalised. We saw Matthew round 1 get a penalty for track extending. We saw ETA Axel get a penalty for track extending at Belgium. So if that is reported, you'd have to think that may be a penalty for the CRT driver, which would be such a shame for next round, which I believe is at Japan. And that is such a crucial track position track. So a qualifying ban will really hinder your progress throughout the race. But we are on board with Amine, the only car on a fast lap at the moment, currently on for a pretty good lap. I didn't quite see his sector 1 split, but it looks pretty clean. Maybe a bit cautious through the left. And has he backed off? I believe he has. I may be wrong. Yes, he has.
Yeah, he backed off going through, I think, turn 5. Looked like he weren't comfortable with the car on that occasion, so he's going to have another go at this one. A bunch of drivers all on outlaps at the moment. Lucas Pegg in the chat. FRA's completely dry setup has backfired here. I'd say FRA's completely dry setup has backfired. I think only Matthew's completely dry setup may have backfired, because Logic, he's only 2 tenths away from getting on the front row and 4 from Leopard. So it's not amazing pace, but he's certainly within touching distance of a front row start, is Logic, and maybe they just haven't passed that information over to the other side of the garage, because Matthew is well down the field at the moment compared to the pace that we usually see him, as are VSR to that matter. They are hugging each other, as we would expect from a VSR team, but they are still in 7th and 8th place, sharing the 4th row at the moment, so a little bit of pace to find here, but RP1 Montoya, again, mixing it up, sticking it in the middle at the moment of these 10 drivers in 5th with that 12.2, but only needs to find 3/10 and he can be on the second row alongside Logic. And again, like Logic, a couple of tenths, he could be on the front row.
I don't think we're going to see any time improvements because I've just been on board with Smokey as well as Amin, and both drivers went straight on at turn 3, just completely missed their braking point, and which leads me to believe the track is getting a bit too wet to improve. And I think this may be your grid for the race. I mean, drivers may just be able to outperform their car and improve, but by the looks of it, it's looking a bit too wet because a lot of drivers going on. As you see, Smokey again 3/10 down in sector 1, which is literally one corner. So you'd have to say it's going to be impossible to improve your lap, and I think this may be your Q3 result.
Yeah, Connor is a 10th down in the second and in the first sector alone here, and that's only basically one corner. So, big tank slapper from Matthew again, who's looking to try and improve, but he's going to be well down the field as well. As Amine retires in the pit lane, he's confident he's got 6 on board here as a big lockup, and I'm not exactly sure as to what Matthew is doing. I think it looks like to me he's pushing the accelerator and brake pedal at the same time going down the straight. Possible frustration, but not ideally the most professional way to get around a circuit. Either way, he is going to be in P9 as it stands, and it's been a monumental mess up, shall we say, from excuse me, FRA Matthews' side of the garage, because Logic clearly found the pace. Just unfortunate that the winner from round 1 wasn't able to replicate that.
Sorry, yeah, it is a shame. And I also just saw Connor go a bit wide at turn 7, I believe, and he had to take to the exit escape road. So yeah, it's a bit too wet for intermediates now, and looks like I've disconnected once again, which is not ideal. But yes, not quite sure what's going on. I mean, I'm still in the party, but
yeah, fingers crossed we can get you back in the lobby. It looks like it's been a bit of a tumultuous time for yourself and your internet connection. Hopefully we can get you back in at some point. Either way, Scyther comes across the line. He's going to try and start a lap, and we'll see if he improves, but that turn 1 is looking very understeery, and then a snap oversteer coming out of the corner, and still tank slappers left, right and centre. It looks like the car is not very comfortable indeed. We'll see what his sector 1 lap time is like then as he comes across, and he's 4.5 tenths down in the first sector. I have a feeling that the intermediate tyres are approaching the end of their capacity, if you will, before they really need to consider moving on to the wets. But if you are going to be something like 10 to 15 seconds a lap slower, there really isn't any point. Logic tries to improve, but he's 3.5 seconds down on his fastest lap, and I suspect your prediction, Loveland, is about right. I think this may be our grid with Leopard on pole position. We'll keep an eye out, although anyway, nonetheless, and see what happens. Though I've got no doubt Connor 2.5 seconds down. Matthew is a 1.5 seconds down. 2.5 seconds down at the moment for Wilson. Big oversteering moment for Logic, who's trying to improve, but he is 5 tenths down in the first sector alone. Scyther is trying to improve, but he's 3.5 seconds down again as they now come into the final corner. Scyther is not going to be improving on this lap. Leopard is obviously all done and dusted in this event as Scyther puts it into the grass. He is done and dusted. FRA Logic is only 3 tenths down in the second sector, so he's found a little bit of pace, but he's going to lose it all the way through turn 6. So he's off camber in the wet. The tyres are absolutely at their limit as regards to the wet conditions, and I suspect Logic is not going to be going any further than 4th place. Indeed, a very, very interesting qualifying. It has mixed it up indeed with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different teams in the top 7.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to see. That's what we bring at TPS, and just so many teams, performing at the top of their game. And Leopard once again proving that he is the rain master this season. That's his 2nd pole of the season, and that is our fun fact for you. That's our first ever 2-time pole position sitter this season. So Leopard, the first driver to get 2 poles this season, but Leopard will be on pole from Cypher for PSR, ESV Bobberts for CRT. Under controversial circumstances, FRA Logic in P4, Montoya P5, Amin P6, Wilson and Smokey the VSR duo in P7 and 8, Matthew in P9, and Connor will be very disappointed to only put it P10 for PSR.
Yeah, FRA and PSR little bit of a mixed bag for them. 2 drivers towards the front, 2 drivers towards the rear. VSR hugging each other as to be expected, separated by only 25 thousandths of a second, but Leopard leading the way. The only driver into the 1 minute 11s in these now very wet conditions. We'll see what the race has got ahead of us, though, as I'm sure the drivers are going to be very, very keen to see what these conditions are going to be like, because if the wet conditions are a thing in qualifying, are they going to carry over into the race? And they certainly are, you know. We're going to be in for an interesting Austrian Grand Prix. We'll be back very shortly for the continued coverage. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome back to TPS. This is the Paradox Series, and we are coming to you live from the Red Bull Ring here in Austria, in Spielberg. Thank you very much for being alongside us for this one. It is going to be a very interesting event, because the conditions you're seeing on screen come from very early qualifying, but certainly not in the race, because it's a soaking wet around here. The 2.6 mile circuit with 10 corners, 3 DRS zones, which I've got no doubt are not going to be used in these wet conditions, but that means it opens up for hot spots of racing. But for turns 3, 4, maybe even 6, 7 and 8 will be ones to watch. Let's take a look then at those driver lineups here tonight. And Paradox Sim Racing are going to be fielding Scyther and Connor tonight. A bit of a mixed bag. Scyther towards the front, Connor in the midfield, with Fury Racing Associates in exactly the same scenario. Matthew towards the midfield, but Logic towards the front. VSR, Wilson and Smokey 8th and 9th respectively for them, hugging each other. 25 thousandths of a second in qualifying separated the pair. Montoya once again showing that he is flexing his muscles for RP1, racing alongside Adam tonight. And then the usual pairing of Jam Pancakes and McCabe San being mixed up a little bit, as he's now on holiday. VRC racing for him. MKEDGE racing alongside AEM JTO 40 for Artemis tonight. They're going to be in the mix alongside Novus as well. No Rev Caterpillar tonight. The fan club will rest easy with Lucas and Amine running the way. Quantum and Oscu were meant to be racing together last week, and they are now here in Austria. Phoenix and Bobberts racing together for CRT. Phoenix coming in later, starts at the back in P20. And then it is about Team Shazoo. Leopard leading the way for the second pole position so far this season, and he did it in the wet. Venom starting towards midfield. It's going to be a very interesting event ahead of us. It is myself, Jota, alongside PSR Loveland. Thank you for being very much for being alongside us. A very tumultuous qualifying session for not just the drivers out there in the wet, for yourself as well. Fingers crossed we'll be able to keep you for the laps ahead of us, 36 of them, but very, very, very wet out there indeed.
But yeah, seems like a lot of drivers are confused at the wet, because it seems to see that it was dry, and I'm just trying to sort that. So you might have to take the lead for a second, because I do have to sort this whole
No, so I think I understand what's happening here. So basically, there is a glitch at the moment with the your racing screens at the front. On the racing screens at the front, when you you log into qualifying, you will see the weather forecast, and you'll see the weather forecast for qualifying, and then you'll see the weather forecast for the race. However, for some reason, in the infinite wisdom of the Codemasters franchise, when you try to look at the racing forecast for the race, you will see the the weather forecast for qualifying. So you'll see a duplicate. So this is a known glitch, unfortunately, within the F122 universe. And unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done about it as it stands. The forecast said it was going to be wet. It is wet. I can't expect these drivers surely are going to be considering a restart for dry, because the conditions were programmed to be wet. That's what was predicted. It's just that their vision of it was unavailable. That does mix up the race, but this is the setting that we've been given. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I'll let you obviously manage how you want to deal with the teams, but from my personal circumstances and my understanding of the glitch, you will see essentially a duplicate of qualifying's weather in the race forecast, and that is what's causing this little mix-up. But unfortunately, that's the forecast.
Yeah, I mean, we have decided that the race will go on. There's no need to restart. Everyone's in the set, continuing as it is. That maybe will mix up the grid even more. And I don't know about you, but I think this might be a bit of a chaotic race. So strap in, everyone, because this could get feisty.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be an interesting one. Indeed, as the people in the chat, in the Discord at the moment, are absolutely begging, I think, to try and get something set up. But unfortunately, the case is set and stone. We are racing in these wet conditions tonight, and that is the big uh-oh for FRA, because one of their drivers has been struggling here. Matthew is going to be starting then in the end on a set of wet tyres in a setup that's suited to the dry. That is a bit of a disappointing scenario for FRA. The only silver lining here is that their other driver, PSR, are also going to be struggling in this scenario, and crucially, everyone has the same glitch, so everyone will have been caught out by this.
Yeah, exactly as you say. Everyone's in the same boat. So, I mean, as you see on the Discord, we're seeing multiple people saying restart, multiple people saying not. As you said, the admins have decided that no restart, and we should be getting ready. I mean, I am the one to say that, and I have said ready up. So just trying to fix my Wi-Fi, trying to sort the event. Bit stressed, but ready to go. And I'll let you call the start.
You're doing the best that you can for sure. I can absolutely show you on that one. We are waiting on the start to begin. Of course, the drivers are more than ready now. More than welcome to start readying up now. But at the moment, as you can see at the top, we don't have that timer there. So people are questioning what's happening, as now Shazoo Josh has now popped into the chat to say that the Part Ferme glitch has now come back. So now we've got opportunities for drivers to now change their setups, which I'm sure all smiles will be appearing on Matthew when he suddenly has better pace in this event. So as well as many other drivers, of course. The race is going ahead as it stands at the moment, but the game is obviously not in the best state, and it hasn't been since launch, so we just have to bear with it. With 10 seconds to go in this event, we are going to be going full steam ahead into what is going to be a very, very interesting Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, here we go then. I might as well call the start since we have synced up quite perfectly. Here we go. 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. I'm expecting a slight delay, as we always do on the F1 game. It's lights out for me, but when will it be lights out for the drivers? Someone's got a jump start. Adam's got a jump start, but it's lights out and away we go. Leopard gets a good start. Cypher gets an even better start. Goes up into turn 1, and he's into the lead. Leopard down to P2. Cypher into P1. Bobbert's holding P3. Logic going around the outside, and he gets into P3. We see Matthew going wide at turn 1, but great start from Cypher and Logic as they are into first and third respectfully. We see 2 wide moments, maybe 3 wide in the back. And we see an Alfa Romeo go up the inside. That's Oscu. It's an absolute carnage at turn 3. Cars going wide everywhere. But Logic into P2. Montoya going into P2. What is going on?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix-up happening towards the midfield at the moment in these heavy wet conditions at the moment. RP1 Montoya getting an absolute flyer. LCR Leopard down to 4th place in the end, with Wilson flying high in 3rd at the moment for VSR, up 4 positions. Montoya up 3, Smokey up 3 as well. Bobbert's down 4 in the end, as we've lost one of the drivers. MK just spun out at turn number 5. As we just keep an eye on what's happening with 36 laps to go in this event, and with 36 laps in this event on the first lap, looks to me as if there's one hell of a mix-up happening at the moment, as the rest of the drivers all just trying to figure out what's going on. As it stands though, PSR flying high, a little bit wide from Montoya though. He's in 2nd place and maybe getting a bit of a challenge from Wilson, who himself is under a lot of pressure at the moment from LCR Leopard. He was down 3 positions from pole position, and he is going to keep trying to challenge WR Wilson into turn 1, and down the inside line they're going to remain, and off of the track goes Wilson to try and hold on to the position, but he's not going to have the grip that Leopard will by staying on the grey stuff, and he will make that overtake. And Smokey also trying to get into this mix. It will be a double whammy for Wilson as it stands, as they go 3 wide into turn 3 around the outside. Smokey will go, Wilson stays on the grey stuff and will potentially get better traction, but he's racing side by side with his teammate. VSR will be chattering teeth here, wondering what's going to happen. Smokey in the end yields.
It looks so calm at the start, you know, a few switches into turn 1. But once we got to turn 3, cars were going wide, cars were spinning, everything was kicking off. But we do see Cypher in the lead. Montoya has an absolutely amazing start up to P2. But he's currently dropping a second behind Cypher. So it looks like Cypher does have the pace to lead, as Leopard gaining rapidly on Montoya, as the gap is just under 0.3 of a second. So keep an eye on Leopard. He will be looking for a move as Logic going up the outside of Smokey, but doesn't quite get the move sorted. But Logic looking quite comfortable in these wet conditions. But so many changes. Not one driver in the top 19 has stayed in the position they started in, as we see ET8 Quantum Pit, maybe for wing damage, I would assume. So we're seeing a lot of cars damaged, which is quite unfortunate. You do not want to see that. But the top 13 get through unscathed as Phoenix has retired. I'm not quite sure where he's retired. Looks like he's crashed. Is that a safety car?
It is a virtual safety car out on circuit at the moment for a crash at turn number 5 for the Red Bull of CRT Phoenix. Only just managed to get into the session in qualifying, as immediately out of the session in the race. Bitterly disappointing stuff for the Continental Racing team, who are now down to one driver, with Bobbers down 4 positions and having a little bit of a tough time of it at the moment. So 1.8 seconds separate Scyther from Montoya at the moment. RP1 looking to get a very good podium as it stands with Montoya if he keeps on with this performance. Leopard down to 3rd place from pole, and then VSR 4th and 5th, FRA 6th and 8th, PSR 1st and 9th. So as it stands at the moment, real mixed bag. Mine also in 10th place as well, as Novus will be very happy indeed that they'll be into the top 10. Of course, remember though, top 15 score points. RP1 Adam will be serving a drive-through penalty at some point. I believe it will be at the end of this lap, as we do go green again here in Austria.
I'm not quite sure what happened there. Amine's actually lost a position to Venom on the restart. Just saw that on the timing tower. So maybe a delta glitch of some sort, but Amin started P6 and he's now P11. So you may say MVR are happy with a top 10 or top 11 now, but starting 6th and on lap 4 they're down to 11th. Not a great start, as MVR Lucas, speaking of Novus, has pit, and I assume that's for damage again. So a lot of damage we're seeing at the start of the race. We're not on simulation damage, so this is quite unusual to see so much damage so little. But yeah, what's going on?
Bit of an incident happening with Bobbers and Matthew at the moment, as PSR Connor trying to get into the slipstream of Matthew. Might go for the dive going into turn 4. The space is there, but chooses in the air not to go for it, because at the moment Matthew is trying to put pressure on Bobbers, but Bobbers is not flinching, and he's able to hold on to the position very nicely and tucked right back in front of the FRA driver, as the CRT, the sole CRT driver now, looking to just go around turn number 6, keep it nice and steady. Off camber, you can get a bit of a tank slapper or a snap oversteer. Matthew just had that actually, but as it stands at the moment, Connor is getting a little bit of better traction through the corners. Matthew struggling on corners coming out of them, and you can see there, look, big oversteering moment and a bit of a lock-up on the front side there, as we've lost another driver who's looks like he's spun out. I believe that is MKedge again spinning out for the AEM team Artemis. Connor getting closer, but as it stands, Matthew is now starting to put a little bit of pressure on Bobbers, but Bobbers is a bit closer to Logic.
Yeah, something we just missed there is Leopard actually got past Montoya into turn 4 for P2 and is now pulling a pretty sustainable gap on the RP1 driver, and he's actually closing on Cypher while doing so. So we could see a battle for the lead in a matter of laps between Cypher and Leopard. And as you said, Bobbers and Logic going side by side. Can Bobbers hold off the fighting Logic coming down to turn 4? Will Logic hold it around the outside? He's going to try. He's down best to. But onto
the gravel for Matthew. Sorry to interrupt. He was trying to get in that battle with the likes of Logic and Bobbers, in the end losing to Connor, and now losing to Venom as well. He's going to go around the outside, but then here comes Matthew trying to defend it. He has got gravel on his wet tyres, remember, so the grip is going to be reduced now for the McLaren as he now heads to turn number 7, and Venom trying to hold on through 8. But again, traction through there, and that is a spinning Bobbers on the camber, off camber, onto the curb, spins out P12 and make it P13.
Yeah, that's not good for Bobbers. I just got on board with him. I was about to mention that Logic got past Bobbers, but Bobbers just lost the rear on the exit, and now he's down to P11 after Jam Pancakes has pitted. And I'd have to say that's for damage as well. We're seeing so many cars get damage. I'm just going to stone board Jam Pancakes in the pitch just to check if that is the reason.
No.
But it doesn't look like there's a wing change, so he's going for the intermediates. So now we're going to see some strategy get involved, and this is going to spice the race up massively.
Yeah, I did think that would be a damage situation, because Jam Pancakes absolutely has been keeping it nice and clean, and he moves on to the intermediate tyre. And to be fair, the rain has started to sort of lift a little bit here, so perhaps the intermediate is a better tyre, as a mistake from Matthew again in the wet, and Venom says thank you very much, I'll have that position right off you. But they're still going to continue side by side, and Matthew will have the inside line, which is the best line to have certainly, but around the outside goes Venom, and they're still going to be nudging wheels ever so slightly as they go through into turn 7, and then it'll be turn 8, and there will be traction for Matthew in that corner, and they get into a collision going through turn 7 and 8, and you have to say one of those drivers had to yield at some point, but with the aggression of the pair of them, neither wanted to.
We have to say we saw that coming. Both drivers going side by side, maybe at places you're not expected to go side by side in the wet. But yeah, that was bound to happen. Quantum is gaining quite rapidly actually on the intermediates, and Wilson's recognised that. He's gone onto the intermediate tyres, so he's going to pull the trigger, and if he can pull this off, he's going to get a huge undercut. But if you keep an eye on Wilson here, ET8 Quantum is only round of turn 1. He's got a massive undercut here. And you have to say, it's definitely time for Inters, because Quantum's gained an absolute heap of time. And he's just within 6/10 of Wilson now. So Quantum's really got himself into play here. And strategy is going to be absolutely key here. I cannot wait to see how this plays out.
Very surprised no one elected to start on the intermediate tyre if they were going to switch on that quickly. But nonetheless, ET8 Quantum coming onto the intermediate tyre on lap number 3 has suddenly found a bucket of pace and is now the second place man in a set of intermediate tyre runners, and he's going to get a massive undercut, as you rightfully point out. And I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be knocking on the door here saying, is it really time for intermediates? Because it feels like that we're going to be staying on the wet. Scythe has elected to stay out. Leopard has as well. Montoya is going to be the first of the top 3 though to make the call to come in out of those that have stayed out on the wets, and Smokey also coming in. Logic stays out. Connor also stays out as well, so PSR are determined to stay on the wets.
Just like to point out, Quantum is a second a lap quicker than Cypher at the moment. So we'll see what his lap time this is at the moment. But it's looking like the Inters are around about 6/10 to a second quicker. And coming out the pits currently is Montoya and Smokey. Will Quantum and Wilson jump them? It's going to be so close. Looks like Quantum has jumped Smokey. They're going to be side by side coming out the pits. And now coming up to turn 3, we're going to see some incredible action as Wilson goes for the move on Montoya. Quantum and Smokey side by side. 2 battles into turn 3. Looks like Montoya is going to get the upper hand. He pushes Wilson wide as Smokey gets the move on Quantum. Bit of argy-bargy, but that is what it's all about in the wet as Montoya holds P8. Wilson still looking for the move. Coming down to turn 4. Can he lunge up the inside? Sent up the inside. Just a bit of contact, but looks like he gets the position done. Absolutely amazing racing here, and Wilson into P8.
Yeah, but in all doing that, he's burnt through all of his ERS. Now he'll be able to recover it a lot easier in the wet conditions, as we've lost a car in Emine. It looks like he's spun out going into turn 5, turn 6 rather, sorry. He's going to be wanting to stay out of the way of this little battle that's happening at the moment. But Wilson has burnt through a lot of his ERS there, which is going to make him very vulnerable on the straights, assuming people could get any traction, as ESV Bobberts, under the cosh of a potential penalty at the end of Q1, goes to the wrong side of the white line in entering the pit lane, as he now enters to get off of the wet tyre. Intermediate tyre and a fresh front wing for PSR. Connor may end up seeing the PSR driver under a little bit of a spot of bother here, so Connor is now going to be coming out well down the field. The last 3 drivers to come off of the wet tyre are at the front. Amine's coming in now to get onto the intermediate tyre. VRCGC and MKEJ are staying out on the wets, but it's almost certainly time for intermediate tyres. LCR Leopard really struggling around turn 4 there, as we keep an eye on Scyther going through, and he is keeping it very gentle indeed here. And I think PSR have realised their mistake of their ways here, trying to extend this wet stint to try and get the intermediates to the end. It's not a call that I think is going to work. I think we're going to be expecting a 2 stop here, certainly.
They're staying out. Really? Cypher staying out, Leopard staying out, Will Logic stay out. I think he's going to pit. No, he stays out. So 3 different teams committing to a bit of a bold strategy here. And just to put into perspective how much the Inters are quicker, Jam Pancakes was P12 or P13 when this whole pit stop shenanigans kicked out. And now he's P8. So if the front runners pit now, Jam Pancakes is going to be in the battle for the top 5. So the Inters are clearly much quicker. Wilson gaining 5/10 every time I check. So these wet runners are really holding out for the dry spell to hit. But it's looking like Jam Pancakes in P8 is a second a lap quicker than the leaders. So it's really going to start kicking in the... Matthew goes fastest lap of a 14.6. And Cypher's last lap was a 15.7. So 1.1 seconds quicker. And the Inters are really starting to stretch their legs now, so be interested to see what the wet runners decide to do.
Pad traction's going to be working a treat for Boberts at the moment. Even though that Matthew got the fastest lap, he's really starting to breathe down the neck of Matthew at the moment is Boberts, and he's actually getting very close, almost touching the back end there. I suspect that those at the front on the wet tyres are trying to extend their stint so they can use just one set of intermediate tyres in the hope that they can make them last the distance, but in doing so, they're going to be losing a bucket of time, and Scyther says, I've had enough, I'm coming in. And he does come in now, and he'll be on the set of wet tyres. We'll see what Leopard does as well. Leopard stays out. Logic also stays out. So they're trying to extend their stint even further, whilst Matthew is still in a battle at the moment with Boberts, who's getting a really, really good run, but a very poor turn 6 has seen him almost spin the car there, has Boberts, and now he's at risk of potentially getting out of the toe of Matthew. While that is all happening in the midfield at the moment, Smokey's still breathing down the neck of RP1's Montoya at the moment. We'll see how much time Scyther lost. Scyther is now just leaving the pit lane, and he won't get into the group of people that have all been battling out. Wilson, Montoya, Smokey, Quantum maybe have lost too much time versus Scyther for Scyther to be really at risk of being overtaken by them at the moment. But Leopard and Logic were down by considerable margin versus Scyther. They could end up being in that battle between 4th and 7th, and maybe even Jam Pancakes, who now enters within the 1 second territory of Quantum.
Yeah, very impressive pace from Cypher to stay out that long on a slower set of tyres and still maintain a 5-second lead over WR Wilson. That is quite incredible. So very good stint there from Cypher, and now he can just kind of run his own race, quiet down a bit, don't take any unnecessary risks, and just lead the race. Be calm as Matthew and Boberts battling. Let's go on board with this. Boberts, I believe, gets the move on Matthew, getting an absolute tank slapper out of that exit, and now Matthew's going to look for the alternative line on the outside but doesn't quite get it, and Matthew loses out to Boberts as Leopard pits. So the wet runners deciding that maybe their wet strategy was a bit too bold, so we'll keep an eye on Leopard to see where he comes out. But by the looks of it, it looks like he's still going to be ahead of this pack, so you'd have to say maybe the Inters aren't as quick as we were led to believe, as Leopard comes out quite comfortably into P2 on cold tyres, bear in mind, but he is comfortably ahead of WR Wilson.
Yeah, comfortably ahead maybe by around about 4 seconds, but those 4 seconds are going to be a serious cushion at the moment, when they're hoping that those in the midfield just behind are going to keep battling, as RP1, Montoya and Smokey potentially getting into a little scrap at turn 3, but in the end not electing to go for too hard on that particular battle. Keep an eye on Logic, by the way. He's surely going to be pitting at the end of this lap. He's about 11.5 seconds behind on Wilson at the moment. In fact, make that about 12 seconds. You need about a 15-second pit stop, so as it stands, Logic will be in this little battle potentially for 4th and 8th at the moment, as Jam Pancakes now starting to get into that territory of the Alfa Romeo, the ET8 driver Quantum, who's been having really good form at the moment throughout the league racing community. Boberts still in front of Matthew, of course. Matthew, though, getting closer and closer as Boberts is just trying to get now into the top 10, getting close to the Artemis driver JTO40, as we've got a half spinner. Looks like it may have been the other Artemis driver, MKedge again, who's really struggling actually through turn 5 and turn 6. FRA Logic stays out.
Yeah, a bit of an honourable mention here for ET8 Quantum, who started in P14. He's now in P7, as well as JTO, who started P16 and is now into P10. So some absolute huge gains for the ET8 and AEM driver respectively. So really impressive from them. Wet conditions definitely suiting them compared to the dry in qualifying. But I think we're settling down a bit now. Logic staying out, and the battles not quite as heated. Well, you don't really expect heated battles in the wet. Settling down a bit now, just following each other. If kind of trying to bait other drivers into mistakes. That's the main thing to do in the wet. Can't really make legitimate overtakes. You have to kind of force your driver into an error. And that is exactly what Smokey's trying to do, because he's all over the back of Montoya, just waiting for that error to occur, and he will pounce to try and get in line with his teammate in 4th.
It's also worth making a note, actually. Quantum, though, as his pace has been great, he obviously made the call to move on to the intermediate tyre on lap number 3, and they will be very happy indeed that he made that call. The only issue is that now they're 10 laps old, and now, though the intermediates should go a lot longer than obviously 10 laps, they will not feel healthy in another 10 laps time, whilst everyone else will have at least 5 laps on him. He certainly will be coming for his second pit stop early on, and of course he will have that pace, but I suspect that it might be a bit of a situation, shall we say, that may end up opening up for the likes of Quantum if those tyres start to fall off the cliff a little bit. We're keeping an eye out as well, of course, on Cypher as he tries to close down the gap to FRA Logic, still on the same set of wet tyres that are considerably off the pace now. He's absolutely determined to try and make this one-stop work by staying on these wet tyres, going onto the intermediate tyre, probably around about lap 16 for a 20-lap stint on the inters to the end, which is fair, but he's going to lose probably more time than he would have been just pitting and going for a two-stop onto the inter tyre. So FRA absolutely determined to try and make this one work. We'll see how Logic goes then into the final corner, and once again stays out another lap.
Yeah, I mean, if Logic does pit now, he's going to come out in P10, I believe, or P9, just ahead of JTO. So not looking good for FRA, because if they did pit now, they'd be 9th and 12th, and that is not the points they need when you've got Cypher, who would take the net race lead if Logic does pit. So they really need to be closing the gap on PSR, but if they do pit now, they're going to be very far behind in points perspective, that is, as MKedge did leave the session there. So I'm just going to pop him another invite just to get him back in. But yeah, very interesting from FRA.
Well, this is all happening, by the way. RP1 Montoya is burning through his ERS at the moment because he's trying to defend from this battle here with Smokey, who tries to go around the outside. Wasn't going to work on that occasion. Big oversteering moment that Quantum had to avoid by the looks of things ever so slightly. And as a result of that one, Jam Pancakes, the door is now beginning to open up for the Saint George Esports driver. And good evening to Allison in the chat for AEM as he says hello in there as well. And very, very late on the brakes from Smokey, almost getting into the back of Montoya. But in the end, Montoya holds on to P5. In that little battle, by the way, PSR Connor still losing time, but holding on to around about a second and a half to Jam Pancakes. But he really needs to find the pace here and try and get PSR a bit more points here, because of course they're a bit of bad form at the moment of PSR. Cypher are going to be earning big points as it stands so far. As a big tank slapper for Quantum. Those intermediate tyres are 12 laps old. Are they already starting to fall off the cliff? He's down to 9th. Connor promoted up to 8th as a result of that one, as Amine has crashed out at turn 5. We saw a virtual safety car come out of that corner, make it a full safety car, and we surely should be seeing a fresh set of intermediate tyres on everyone's car. And suddenly Logic strategy has become a gold star on FRA's count to try and take a race victory. Matthew, on the other hand, has completely ruined it and got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, it looks like FRA's strategy of waiting for the safety car has paid off, and I'm just on board with Connor, and it looks like a lot of Delta issues coming on because drivers are stopping in the middle of the track to get through on their Delta. So a bit of carnage here on lap 16, but FRA's strategy of waiting out for a safety car has paid off massively. And if Logic pits now, I believe he'll come out around Jam Pancakes with the safety car Delta. So big strategy call here from FRA, and we were doubting it, but now it's paid off massively. But as you say, Matthew speeding in the pit lane, and you don't need to be taking them risks under safety car. That a 10th is not going to gain you a lot in these conditions. So a 5-second penalty for maybe pushing a bit too hard on pit entry. It's just so unfortunate. A bit. I don't want to say stupid, but it is a bit of a stupid penalty to get. And Matthew, just so unfortunate for him. And FRA maybe on the back foot. So hopefully Logic can bring this strategy to life.
Third place is what I expect Logic to be coming out of, because there is a 10 and now an 11-second gap between Wilson and Leopard, which of course if they all elect to pit as well, FRA Logic will stay in first. I suspect that a bunch of drivers will elect to stay out. We'll see what happens though, as the intermediate tyre now finally goes on of the McLaren. Cypher of course will overtake, as will Leopard in all of that scenario, because Leopard has decided to stay out. A bunch of drivers all electing to pit. Logic will come out then in potentially second place as it stands, with Cypher all pitting. Wilson also Wilson, I'm surprised, 10-lap old intermediate tyres. He's stayed out and gone for track position and is now up to third place, with Cypher just coming out. He's now off of the podium. AEM JTO Forte also electing to stay out on 8-lap old intermediates. Montoya stays out as well. Bobbert stays out as well. Smokey just coming out of the pit lane now. Jam Pancakes getting in the mix. Matthew is elected to try and stay out on the 1-lap old intermediate that he pitted on a lap ago, and he then stays into 10th place, just in front of Quantum after getting that tank slapper. He'll be happy the safety car is there, Quantum, because now he knows he's got the pace. He just doesn't want that error to happen again. But opportunity knocks for VRC GC down in 17th place. The moment he has an opportunity to potentially get some inroads now for Saint George Esports, as we're now behind the safety car with just a little bit under half of this race completed.
Yeah, only half the race completed. It feels like we've been going for quite a while, but the wet races always seem to go on just a bit longer with the slower lap times. Someone who's benefited hugely from this at the moment is AMJ20. Started P16, currently running in 6th place, albeit on the old intermediates compared to a few people around him on the fresh inters. So if he can keep it clean, he's on for a very good result here. And by the time it dries up, if it does dry up, he's going to be in the hot seat to get a very good result for Team Artemis and hopefully boost them from 10th in the standings. So very good strategy so far from AEM. Hopefully that pays off for them. But yeah, a very mixed up grid. And we've got Leopard from Logic and Wilson, Cypher, Montoya, JT. Actually, we've got 7 teams in the top 7 once again. So just beautiful to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. As we just keep an eye on lap 18 of 36, that brings us now halfway into this race. LCR Leopard leads the way, but he's on old intermediate tyres, albeit they're only 6 laps old, and of course one of those laps being behind the safety car. FRA Logic, on the other hand, a fresh set of intermediate tyres that are going to be very racy indeed, though we expect Leopard, the pole position man, the pole sitter, is going to be very rapid around here on intermediate tyres. The question is he going to be able to make those inters last? And if he doesn't, how far ahead can he get until he makes his pit stop? That is going to be the question. We're still waiting on people connecting to the back of the grid at the moment. As it stands, we've just got Oskun, Lucas and Adam all coming through. That's for the ET8 teams. It's for Novus and for RP1, and of course VRC for Saint George Esports has just left the pit lane on a fresh set of intermediate tyres, so he'll be the last driver to connect at the back. He's just heading around turn 3 at the moment, so this will be the last lap then behind the safety car, and early indications suggesting Leopard's going to want to put some pace in. The question is how long are those inters going to last? Because if Quantum and his situation occurs to Leopard, we could be in for a very mixed up race.
Yeah, judging off the first stint, it looks like Leopard and Cypher, I would say, are the class of the field in the wet. They had very, very good pace, pulling away from the rest of the field. So if Leopard can break away from Logic Wilson at the start, it's going to be hard for Cypher to really pressure him, because he has got 2 cars in between himself and Leopard. So it could be an absolutely beautiful strategy call from Shazoo. It just all depends if them fresh inters for FRA light up and Logic can take the lead. And if Logic does win, just a quick fact for you once again, that will be the 7th race winner in 7 races in TPS. So part of me wants Logic to win, because I'm all for some tasty stats.
I'm under the impression MKedge is not rejoining, and his lapped car is down at the back of the grid at the moment as he just cycles around, but he has a 5-second penalty anyway, looks like, for a collision that happened earlier on. FRA Matthew has a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Adam has a 3-second penalty, and that is for the track extension, or I believe it might have been a collision actually. We'll have to see. Either way, safety car coming in at the end of this lap. VRCGC needs to get a shift on to try and get to the back of this grid now, as it looks like he was taking it very steady going through turn 3, realised the safety car's coming in, and now he's flooring it to try and get to the back of this here. So LCR Leopard will lead the way from the front on 7-lap-old intermediate tyres, fresh intermediate tyres now on Logic's car. Wilson on 12-lap-old intermediate tyres, which could end up becoming a significant problem as we approach into the higher 20s of this race. We'll see what happens. Then Leopard is just keeping all the track and keeping all the cars behind him. He just wants to manage his own race here. Safety car now entering into the pit lane. It looks like Leopard has certainly decided to go here, and he might have caught Logic napping a little bit as they come around turn 10, the final corner, and they will approach the start-finishing line, because we are green again here in Austria, and it is a very good restart from LCR Leopard, who's pulled away very nicely from Logic. And while this is all happening towards the back, WR Smokey is trying to make some inroads on ESV Boberts, but the CRT driver is well and truly holding on to P7. But a very good exit indeed from WR Smokey. It's a poor entrance and a better exit from Smokey, as Smokey tries to go down the inside line, is cut off, then tries to go around the outside, sees the inside is open, he's going to go for the late breaker, but Boberts is going to be even later on the brakes. He's going to try and hold on. The door is open, but Boberts surely has got the better traction, and he will hold on to P7, as Smokey and Boberts have been battling pretty much all the way through this race, and they're still battling as they head now into turn 4. Smokey elects not to go for the dive down the inside line.
Yeah, very, very good race. Smokey sends Boberts to the inside, and now he's going to get a very good run. What big tab slapper, but he's still going to go for the move. sends Bobbers a bit wide. Can he sneak up the inside? Going to go side by side through turn 7. It's a big tank slapper, but he's still going to firm it. Now go on the exit. They're going to go side by side, bit of contact, but great racing in the wet. And Smokey gets the position on Bobbers. Absolutely amazing racing. Respect shown from both drivers, and that is exactly what you want to see. Great battling here in TPS.
Yeah, the pair of them were driving through turn 6 and turn 7 quite a lot, actually, and going side by side. And last time that happened, Smokey ended up off of the track, and I believe in that one he's just got away with it on this occasion, now promoted up to P7, but Bobberts no doubt will want to try and race. The only issue, 12 lap old intermediate tyres. The same situation happening for JT, and the same situation happening for Montoya, whilst in front of him Wilson, who is also struggling with the old intermediate tyre, has just been overtaken by Scyther, but Wilson getting the better exit, but the traction is just not there, and you can see the fresh intermediate tyre working an absolute treat at the moment. For those that have made the pit stop, Wilson, Montoya and JT, though, are a little bit of a brick wall to those in 7th place at the moment. And then that is, would you believe, BSR's Smokey.
You'd have to say, though, a lot of people struggling with the old Inters. Leopard, he's going to put to bed that call, because he's just dropped Logic by a second on the old Inters. So he's quite happy to run his own race on the old intermediates. 5 lap younger or older tyres, than Logic and Cypher. Cypher may be looking the quicker of the two between him and Logic. So if Cypher can catch up to Logic, we're going to have a three-way fight for the lead. But as it stands, Leopard really showing some good pace on them old intermediates.
Just keeping an eye on what's happening in P14 at the moment towards the back. Lucas at the moment trying to battle with Oscu as the Novus driver battling out with the ET8 driver. Oscu obviously missing out last week, so an opportunity to find a little bit of pace with the team. Unfortunately, disappeared, shall we say, with the lack of attendance. However, Novus is trying to battle with Lucas here. He might go for the dive down the inside line, and he certainly is. That's very late on the brakes and gets into a collision with Quantum. Have to say, that was bold, and it wasn't ever going to work.
I didn't quite catch that one, but looks like Lucas has gained a position in a controversial way. So we'll see if that's reported by the ET8 team. But Lucas up into P13, and as we were on board with that, Jam Pancakes actually got past Matthew. So good move from Jam Pancakes into P9. Matthew with that 5-second penalty, which is going to drop him outside of the points at the moment, which is really not what FRA want. But someone who we should stay on board with is Smokey, because he is gaining rapidly on JT. He is using a bit more battery than JT. The Artemis driver just quite happy to run his own race. And what's happened behind?
Yes, Shazoo Venom and apologise. Oh my goodness me! And that is awful collision involving FRA Matthew, and he's now been spun all the way to the back of the field. Whilst that was happening, you were saying about what was happening with Smokey. I was just keeping an eye on what was happening with Matthew. He was losing a bucket of time versus, I believe, it was a battle happening with the likes of Venom. And then in that little incident that was happening, they were going side by side, battling really hard, and then there ended up being a small collision, and then he tried to go through the corner no problem, but somebody was up his inside and spun him out, and that might have been PSR Connor actually in 11th place. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, Matthew has now been relegated all the way to the back of the field, and I suspect that might just be his race over and done with.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was on board with Connor when that incident happened, so it definitely was Connor and Matthew who got into a bit of a tussle there. And what a weird incident there. Matthew just having a few bad corners, and he's now down to 17th. So that penalty is null and void now, because it doesn't even matter. So he's going to be outside of the points, and Logic flying the flag for FRA, as Smokey is 1/10 behind JT. 20% less battery. JT quite happy to run his own race. And you have to say Smokey going to go for a move this lap. Will he go for it into turn 1? You'd have to say no. Not very much of an overtaking opportunity. More of a setup for turn 3. As we'll stay on board with Smokey. Gets a very nice exit out of turn 1. And can JT defend? Will he burn his battery? He is going to burn it. So this is all for position. JT very happy with this 6th place he's gained. And quite happy to defend the inside slightly. Smokey going to try and set up the exit. Can he get a good exit? Going to burn on the exit. Bit of wheel spin, but very nicely done. And now he's going to burn. No, he's not. So Smokey just sitting behind and hopefully going to set up the move for a future reference.
Well, this is all happening, by the way, towards the front. FRA Logic is 1.2 seconds behind Leopard, and those tyres are now starting to age considerably on Leopard's car. Now, Logic, remember, those tyres are around about 4 laps old. They have to be perfectly candid. Leopard's probably around about 8 or 9. So the tyres are slowly but surely going to start falling off here for Leopard, and he's not pulling as much time as I think he'd like in order to sort of compensate for the time loss. And I have a feeling Leopard is going to start to struggle towards the end of this race, because if he is going to try and go to the end, they are going to be 24 laps old, are those intermediate tyres, albeit with a safety car period, 19 laps of racing probably on them. Smokey, as you're rightfully pointing out, they're still battling at the moment, are Smokey and JT, but JT able to hold his own, particularly on the straights, actually. The corners aren't particularly JT's strong point. See there through turn 1, he lost a bit of time, but on the straight, he's absolutely keeping his distance very nicely. But with the overtake button now available, JT has now been overtaken by Smokey, would you believe, on the straight. He is going to try and challenge on the inside line, and here comes Montoya with a mistake. That might open the opportunity for Smokey to get a couple of positions here. Is he going to push? And in typical Smokey fashion, he is going to try and push. Is he going to go for the move potentially down into turn 4? The gap is there. Montoya is going to hold on around the outside line, but surely that position is going to be overdone with. The traction is going to be there for Montoya, but the lack of tyre grip has only cost him. He's down to 6th.
That's incredible from Smokey on the younger tyres, making its worth. And great move on JT into turn 3. Just easy move up the inside, and then up the inside of Montoya into turn 4. Brilliant sequence of corners for Smokey. And now VSR hold 4th and 5th, which is a great points haul for the team. The only one of the, I put in quotations, big teams that have 2 cars in the top 5. So very impressive so far from VSR. Always consistent, as you like to point out. And 4th and 5th for the VSR drivers at the moment. Very good stuff from them.
Yeah, always very, very, very consistent, actually, are the VSR team. Very much looking forward to seeing what they've got coming up, actually, later through this season. Of course, we're halfway through now this season, as Venom is looking to put a bit of pressure on the Saint George Esports driver of Jam Pancakes, as Shazoo's trying to get himself up to 9th place as they go wheel to wheel and collide ever so slightly. Jam Pancakes nudges him ever so slightly and holds on to P9 as Venom is trying to put the pressure on, but it looks to me as if he's not going to get the traction on this particular occasion. Goes down to the inside line and back onto the racing line, as we've got more battling happening between AEM GTO40 and Bobbers racing here. This is important and crucial points, actually, for CRT and Artemis. They absolutely do need these here, especially with Bobbers being on his own, but at the moment he can't make any inroads on JT, especially with the fact they're on very old intermediate tyres. He's looking for the gap down the inside, but can't make a move on that particular occasion. Jam Pancake's getting closer, but Venom and Connor breathing down the neck. Look at Connor as well. Also suddenly found a little bit of pace now, and it's actually putting Venom under some pressure as Leopard goes fastest of anyone despite being on the old intermediate tyre. Scyther goes even faster. I'm wondering if the conditions are now starting to suit the intermediate tyre a little bit more here, as Lucas gets a 3-second time penalty for track extension. There's a bit more spray out there as well. Is the rain starting to fall a little bit heavier, I wonder?
Yeah, it might be, because Matthews actually had a spin at turn 3 as well, so he's struggling a bit with the conditions down in P17. JT went for the move on Montoya, didn't quite work out, and now under pressure from Bobberts. And Jam Pancakes also looking to make a move. Venom goes up the inside, nearly clips the back of Jam Pancakes, but Connor with a switchback. Can he get the traction down? He is on pad, so both these drivers on pad. So it's just a battle off the controllers, and Connor looks like he's got a bit more straight line speed. What a move, what a switchback. PSR Connor into P10. That
was impressive. I wasn't expecting a move of that caliber. That particular corner as well. And always on the grass is Shazoo Venom getting a bit of an oversteery moment. Looks like he got a wheel spin, actually, which sent him onto the grass. That's lost him a bucket of time. Connor has suddenly found some real pace at the moment. Whether these conditions are suddenly suiting the car, it's definitely raining heavier out there. Those conditions are looking a lot wetter. And I'm wondering if we're getting close to wet conditions here, you know, with the tyres. I'm wondering what's happening. Matthew has come into the pits, maybe a front wing change, or is it potentially the possibility of wet tyres now going on the FRA driver's car? We'll have to see heading around that final corner, as it is a fresh set of intermediates for Matthew. But I'm wondering, with the conditions now getting wetter out there, the intermediates have suddenly found a little bit more pace. But are we approaching wet tyre conditions towards the end of this race? That'll certainly mix it up. Scyther getting close to FRA Logic, by the way. Logic now starting to find a little bit of pace versus Leopard. He's starting to lose a bit of time on these older intermediate tyres. Meanwhile, Scyther and Logic, when their fresher intermediate tyres, are getting closer and closer, but Scyther getting closer faster.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of cars start to struggle now as MVR Lucas goes up the inside of RP1 Adam, pushes him wide, but gets into P13. But yeah, a lot of drivers struggling now on these old intermediates, which does make you think either the inters are dying off or the wet conditions are, or the rain's coming down a bit heavier. So very interesting dynamic at the moment. And something I'd like to point out, Logic seems to have 90% ERS. So I think he's waiting for a late charge onto Leopard. Going to wait for them tyres to die and then go for a late pounce. And we could see Logic become the 7th winner of this season. So keep an eye on Logic, because I think he's got something up his sleeve.
Yeah, he potentially has got something up his sleeve here, because especially if they elect to stay on the intermediate tyre in possibly changeable conditions, those on the fresher intermediate tyre are absolutely going to benefit from this scenario. Leopard has been up and down, gaining and losing time left, right and centre as we've got a spinning car, and it looks like we've lost potentially a half spin, I think, by the looks of things on Bobbitt's case, as Oscar goes down the inside of turn 1. Bobbitt tries to get the switch back here as Scyther's made a move for P2. It's action happening all over the circuit at the moment. These conditions are so interchangeable as we've lost Matthew in the pit lane. He's chosen to say that he's had enough. He is done with this race. 7 laps to go. He is in the pit lane and he leaves the session immediately. Disappointing stuff from the FRA driver to leave that early on, especially if we've got wet tyres potentially going on. Anything can happen, and it usually does in F1.
Yeah, it's a shame to see Matthew retire. He's had a bit of a torrid day as we've got another yellow flag. I believe that is just Matthew's car coming out of the pit lane. Something we missed on stream, I think. Cypher went up the inside of Logic, pushed him off. Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton-esque at turn 3. So we'll see if Logic decides to report that, or the FRA team bosses, I should say. But Cypher does get into P2, and that's going to hinder Logic's process. He was saving up that ERS, but now he's going to have to fight back through and overtake Cypher. So Cypher putting hold to that FRA strategy and putting another spanner in the works of this race.
Yeah, these conditions are really starting to look a little bit treacherous at the moment. Back towards the front, Leopard 1.7 seconds and 1.8 seconds as he heads into turn 3 now is the German. He'll be happy with his performance so far, being able to hold off from an attacking trio of drivers. And of course Wilson still holding on, 23 lap old intermediate tyres. Now well, I'll be perfectly candid. Bobbitt's had a chat with me on Tuesday, about the graphics that I have on the right-hand side of my screen to tell me what the condition of the tyres are. Apparently, they were a little bit on the inconsistent side, shall we say. And as we just see an overtake for PSR Connor on Jam Pancakes going into turn 4, it suggests at the moment that, as it stands, Wilson has got 64% wear at the moment, which would be a bit of a risky scenario with 6 laps to go at the moment. Now, I'll be perfectly candid, it might be wrong. And for all we know, it could be. It's been wrong in the past, it might be wrong again. But if it's right, he's at the risk of puncture territory towards the end of this race.
If that is right, that is scary stuff for Wilson. You'd have to say that's also scary for Montoya and JT. What's happened? MVR
Lucas and Oscar going side by side through turn 9. That is not what you do. And they're keeping it very nice and steady because the safety car has come out. And I'm not sure exactly as to why. And I believe that's a safety car as a result of a spinning car. But everyone is slow to a crawl, as you rightfully imagine, because of the correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, it's Scyther! Scyther has no front wing! He has absolutely zero front wing, so the safety car has come out as a result of debris on the circuit, but the PSR team have lost their main and front runner, who's in second place without a front wing. Logic is now going to be breathing down the neck of LCR Leopard, and it's all going to be about people deciding what they want to do. Do they go into a fresh set of inters again, or do they stay out? And surely we're going to be on a fresh set of inters, as we have a person get a 5-second penalty. It's Adam again for a collision with Oscu.
I'm quite jaw-dropped. I'm not quite sure what happened there. I'm not sure if maybe Leopard slowed down to get into Delta and Cypher just didn't see it coming, or maybe that is why the safety car came out. But yeah, Cypher no front wing, and that's going to put him massively down the field. And it's going to be interesting to see who pits. We've got 5 laps of this race left. Who's going to pit onto fresh inters? You'd have to say Wilson, Montoya, JT, Bobbitt's. They're all on 20+ lap old inters. They're going to have to pit as Cypher comes into the pit lane for sure, gets that front wing sorted. You don't have to follow the pit entry rules in this race because we feel it just causes a bit of carnage. So Cypher pits. Who else pits? Wilson stays out on 24 lap old inters. It's absolutely brave stuff from Wilson. Smokey stays out. Montoya stays out. JT stays out. Connor stays out. No one is pitting. So this is going to be an absolute slugfest to the end of who can survive on these old Inters.
Opportunity knocks for Logic then. He's on what is considered to be 3 laps off of the 15-12 laps, and then another 3 laps off of that. So they'll be only about 13-lap-old worn when it comes to the raceability of the tyre. Leopard, on the other hand, will be on about 19-lap-old intermediate tyres of full racing condition, which is, according to my screen anyway, is on 45% worn tyre. So if that is the case, he may start to struggle, especially towards the end of this race. But it's all about how long the safety car period is. The safety car will only go as far as lap 35. And I believe the safety car will come in at the end of lap 34 for a 2-lap sprint to the end. But it's all about how quickly the drivers can get to the back of this trail of cars. Opportunity certainly opens up here for Logic here. Fresher intermediate tyres is absolutely what they're looking for. PSR Connor is the lead PSR driver in 7th place at the moment. Scyther in 10th. It looks to me as if PSR have had an absolute stinker once again, and they're going to be losing points, with FRA Logic in 2nd place, and certainly losing points to VSR. What a performance to them, 3rd and 4th respectively, but keep an eye on Wilson. 25-lap-old Inters.
I would love to see what happened with Cypher, because by the looks of the timing tower, he didn't lose any time to Leopard. So that leads me to believe that he's running to the back of Leopard. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see how you can lose your front wing and not lose any time to the car ahead. So that's my observation from that. But it's quite odd. I think we're going to see a few reports once again in the stewards room. But very odd scenario. And PSR, as you said, just that bad run of form in TPS seems to be continuing a bit. And 7th and 10th is not enough when you've got FRA Logic in P2. You've got Leopard winning. You've got Wilson and Smokey P3 and 4. A lot of points getting taken away from PSR, and who knows what can happen. We've got 4 laps of racing left, 1 lap under safety car. If Adam can catch up to the pack, the safety car will be in this lap. But I think we're going to see some absolute elbows out moves here, and it may get a bit hectic, and I'm completely ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, LCR Leopard at the moment out there is just trying to warm his tyres up, which should be easy done, to be fair. The scrubbed to the intermediates 21 laps old. As MKedge's Ghost joins at the back, of course, he will not be classified as a result of leaving very early on in this race. RP1 Adam, on the other hand, is right at the back, and the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So it will be a 3-lap dash for this race, a 3-lap sprint on old intermediate tyres. How much time is Scyther going to gain on the 1-lap-old intermediate tyre versus everyone else? And it's all going to be about watching Scyther and how many positions he climbs, because if he can at least get up to P5, I'm sure he'll be very happy with that one. But in the end, it will be a 3-lap dash to the end of this race, and Leopard, for the 2nd time in this race, will hold up the field as the safety car now enters into the pit lane. How early is Leopard going to go? It does go early once again, and for the 2nd time, you'd have to say Logic has been caught napping, and that might put him under some pressure versus Wilson on 26-lap-old Inters, who struggles and might be under some pressure from his teammate Smokey here as we go green again in Austria. Smokey surely is going to put the pressure on Wilson, and they've got to change position at some point if this has got anything to go by, as we keep an eye on what's happening with Scyther, already making inroads around the outside versus Venom. Venom trying to get his elbows out, as we typically see from the Shazoo driver, and he's going to go side by side, and they're still colliding so close between the two as we expect. Smokey and Wilson have changed positions. Going against turn 3, that's so late for Venom. He gets caught out, and he's now down to 10th, maybe 11th if Quantum gets anywhere close there, and it gets a little bit of a tank slapper, but very well caught going off of the track. Scyther caught him. He's into 9th.
Yeah, absolute carnage as we expected on the restart. Connor up to 6th ahead of JT. Cypher up in front of Venom. We're seeing so much switching in the back as Adam goes wide at turn 4 and JC into P15 for St George's. But so many positions changing. We've got JC looking up the inside to Osku. So many cars right up behind the other. And looks like Leopard has gained 9/10 on Logic on the opening lap. And he's used just about the same amount of ERS as Connor goes up the inside of Montoya. What a move from Connor, really putting his foot down on them younger intermediates. And you'd have to say that Wilson, Leopard, JT, Montoya, they're all going to start struggling as their tyres are now 26 plus lap old. Unbelievable that they're still even going. So it's going to get a bit hectic as we come to the end of this race.
28 lap old tyres now for Wilson at the moment, so keeping an eye out on Scyther, who gets a little bit of an oversteering moment. Lap 35 and 36, he's going to be aiming to at least get anywhere near his teammate at the moment. Surely it's going to be a late breaker. He's got the grip to be able to do it, and he is looking for it. So late on the brakes, gets into a collision with Jam Pancakes. PSR Connor battling with Wilson as they still go side by side, and it looks like we've got a bit of a trouble happening here with PSR Connor now relegated back down to 5th place, still battling around the outside line. That's so late on the brakes from PSR Connor, and he's going to make that move, stick around the outside, getting into a collision as WR Wilson holds on. Scyther still trying to battle but can't make any moves so far on Jam Pancakes for the Saint George Esports team, and JTO 40 for Artemis gets a big and very well earned points as it stands in P7 on 26 lap old Inters. WR Wilson trying to hold on for 28, lapping it with 29 as he comes across the start finishing line. Lucas loses position for Novus down to 16th.
Connor went for the lunge at turn 3, just went a bit deep into the corner. Wilson switchbacked him and Connor hung it around the outside at turn 4. Unbelievable move from the PSR driver, and we've got a freeway battle for the lead. Logic not quite closing down on Leopard, but we are on the final lap here. Cypher in P9 closing up to Jam Pancakes. Every driver burning every single bit of battery they've got. Cypher hits the back of Jam Pancakes slightly, but he's in P9. Venom gets a good run. Can he get the run up to turn 3? He's going to burn all his battery, but no position changes as it stands, and it's going to be a stalemate up to turn 3. No collisions.
Oh, he's collided with Quantum.
4.
Venom and Quantum getting into a collision going through turn 4, and in that situation Venom has now lost all the time he wants to get on Scyther, so Scyther might hold on to P9, which is a bit of a disappointing position he didn't really want to be in. Connors will not likely to hold on to 4th. Smokey is getting perilously close now to Logic around the final corners. This is the last lap of the race, by the way, so these corners all count now, and it's all going to be extremely close as Leopard is just trying to navigate his car around ever so gently. Doesn't want to put too much pressure on because he knows that he's going to be ever so close to taking a fantastic victory. Scyther gets a 3-second penalty. No. He's going to fall down the standings. Bobbets also loses position, but around the final corner he comes. LCR Leopard has held on 24 lap old intermediates to win the Austrian Grand Prix. Logic finishes in 2nd with Smokey in 3rd. Connor finishes with the fastest lap in 4th. Wilson in 5th. Montoya in 6th with JT in 7th, and then Pancakes in 8th. Oscar in 9th, but the time penalties applied drops Scyther to 10th, and it is bitterly disappointing stuff down towards that midfield as PSR lose out big time in the halfway stage of this season. Their bad fortune continues.
Quantum spun at the final corner of the race. I'm not sure if there was collision, but he spun at the final corner and he's gone from mid-pack to P16. No points for ET8 Quantum. Such a shame. But it is going to be LCR Leopard, our first 2-time winner of the season. He got pole. He got the win. Great performance from Leopard. An absolute rain master, it seems. Logic P2. And we've got, I believe, WR Smokey in P3. 3 different teams on the podium. Great to see. And as you said, PSR's bad fortune just continues. No cars on the podium today. What do they have to do to improve this form? Such a shame to see, but the title fight reigns on.
Shazoo will be very happy to hear that LCR Leopard's form is just absolutely astronomical, because it's not necessarily about the pace, but it is certainly all about that consistency, and Mr. Consistency takes a pole and eventually takes a win here in Austria after 36 grueling laps. It has been absolutely salivating, to say the least, how that finished off. We'll take a look then at those final standings as we see, of course, 2nd and 3rd place getting their respective trophies. LCR Leopard takes the victory tonight from pole position. Logic finishes in 2nd with Smokey in 3rd. Connor finishes in 4th, and with the fastest lap as well will take that extra point. But it has not been an overall great race for the Williams team and PSR in general. Of course, Scyther down to 10th in the end from 2nd place. Wilson finishes in 5th with Montoya in 6th. Great job from Wilson, by the way, on 29 lap old intermediate tyres. Jam Pancakes in 8th, Oscar in 9th, and then Scyther, as I said, rounding out the top 10. Venom finishes in 11th place in the Emma Bobbets in 12th, and then a VRCGC in 13th with RP1 Adam in 14th, and Lucas in 15th. Quantum in 16th. MKEdge will not classify. The rest all DNFing. What a race indeed. I've been thoroughly impressed with the performance of the drivers out there. And in the end, we are going to be very, very happy to take just a small break, a very small break, the 1 week, of course, before we get straight on next week with a fantastic race lining up ahead of us in Japan. So if anything, if the rain has got anything to go by in Austria, surely the Japanese Grand Prix in the wet is going to make for some fun times. Last minute thoughts, anything to say on that one, Loveland?
No, just a great race, as we always expect from TPS. A lot of different teams battling for the win, and Leopard becomes our first two-time pole sitter, as well as our first two-time winner of this season. So congratulations to Leopard, congratulations to Smokey on P3, and congratulations on Logic on his debut to get P2. So congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations to everyone indeed. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week in Japan. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.